Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're jumping straight into some really raw and intense lyrics, stuff that maps out grief, doubt, a real spiritual search. We're looking at excerpts from Oliver Anthony Music's Only God Can Save Us Now. And, it's more than just a song text. It feels like a really stark, kind of unvarnished look inside someone's struggle. So our mission today is to sort of unpack the emotional core, the thematic nuggets in this piece, give you a clearer picture of the conflicts playing out.
Exactly. That internal conflict is definitely key. We're basically treating these lyrics like a document of, well, existential pain, looking at how the songwriter voices this really specific loss, but also, navigates spiritual confusion and ultimately this search for something real, something authentic when everything else seems to fall short.
Okay, right. So let's trace that journey. We'll start with that initial heavy weight of loss and the isolation that seems to follow. Then we'll move into that almost frantic search for salvation he describes, and finish up with what feels like the core paradox. This preference for, well, painful chaos over just feeling numb. So, starting point. That immediate weight of loss, the opening lines, they really throw you into this contradiction, don't they? They say all dogs go to heaven, but I don't know, well, it's been hell since you went away. It's quite the opening.
Yeah, what strikes me is just how brutally efficient that is. That contrast, you've got the cliche, right? The sort of comforting idea, dogs go to heaven, something everyone says. And then bam, it's just smashed against this personal lived reality. It's been hell, all because you went away. It kind of weaponizes that common saying against his own experience.
It really does. It's not just sadness. It feels like the whole world's been flipped upside down. Heaven turned into hell because of one person's absence.
Precisely. And lyrically, it's a really smart way to set the stakes high right from the start. This isn't just, feeling down. It's an immediate, all-encompassing state. The loss becomes the filter for everything else.
Right. And this all-encompassing grief that doesn't just exist inside him, it seems to force this isolation, even when people are trying to help. He says, people I know called me on the phone, but I don't have much to say.
That line seems simple, but there's a lot packed in there. It shows this, fundamental disconnect. The support system is there, right? People are calling, but internally. The lines are down. Communication just isn't happening. The grief is just too big, maybe too private to share.
Is it just that he can't speak, though? Like, literally overwhelmed? Or is there maybe an element of, I don't know, pushing people away, a kind of refusal to water down that specific pain with, general chat?
That's a really good point to consider.
Yeah.
It definitely feels like incapacitation, that classic thing where huge emotion just shuts down language. But it could also imply a choice, couldn't it? If you've ever felt totally overloaded, sometimes silence feels like the only authentic response. Trying to explain the mess just feels wrong or impossible, so you just don't. The silence becomes a shield, almost, against niceties that don't really help.
Yeah, that makes sense. And that silence, that inability to connect, it seems to push him inward, right? Towards this desperate search for guidance elsewhere, which takes us straight into that spiritual urgency in the text.
Yeah, the need for something outside himself becomes critical because the internal world has kind of crumbled.
And there's a real ticking clock here. The plea itself feels urgent, like it's almost too late. I think only God can save me now. I think the time's just about run out. That running out of time bit really amps up the desperation.
It really does. That phrase, run out, shifts it from just thinking about things to full-on crisis mode. And in a crisis, people often reach for familiar metaphors, right? Which is what he does. He pictures salvation as a light in the dark and the right at the fork of the road. Very traditional images.
Yeah, classic symbols. Light showing the way out of darkness. The fork representing that clear choice you need when you're lost. They stand for certainty when everything else is confusing.
They do, but we should be careful not to read it solely as a declaration of strong faith. It feels more like a statement of absolute desperate need. He's reaching for those traditional words because what else is there? The problem isn't the map, maybe. It's the person trying to read it.
And you see that exact problem, that paralysis, right after the plea. He recognizes the need for God, but then admits he's completely lost. But it's hard to admit when you don't even know where to go.
Exactly. That's the core tension in this whole section. The guidance, he needs the light, the path, it might be there theoretically. But he's so stuck in his own confusion and grief that he can't even figure out where he is to start moving towards it. Like, what good is a bright light if you don't even know which way to look? His own despair cancels out the possibility of rescue.
So he needs help urgently, but he doesn't know how to accept it or even where to find it, like needing a lifeboat but being too disoriented to grab the rope.
Precisely. This search for outside help kind of stalls because the internal chaos is just too overwhelming.
Yeah.
And that failure, I think, pushes him into the really fascinating part of this excerpt, this shift towards accepting, even embracing the internal chaos, which brings us to the third segment.
Right. This part deals with that huge gap between how the world is and how he feels.
Yeah.
The apathy, the numbness setting in. He uses that powerful image. Well, sometimes the sun shines so bright, I just can't feel it.
The sun. You know, the ultimate symbol of warmth, life, energy. It's doing its thing, shining brightly. But for him, nothing. He's completely insulated from it.
Yeah, it's more than just being sad, isn't it? It's like a deep dissociation.
Totally. All the things that should offer comfort, nature, sunshine, even those friends calling earlier, they're all just ineffective. Meaningless noise, almost. His internal reality is totally divorced from the external world. It's like being frozen solid on a beautiful warm day.
And this numbness, this apathy, it creates the conditions for that really striking final move he makes, choosing the painful, raw feeling over this kind of comfortable but dead denial. When the beautiful world doesn't reach him, he finds something else.
Yeah, he leans right into the other extreme, doesn't he? And there's days I'm insane, but it's okay.
Okay. How is being insane okay?
Well, because of the very next line, the justification. At least it's real heat.
Real heat. We really need to unpack that phrase. It feels like the absolute pivot point of the whole excerpt.
Yeah.
What's he choosing there? He's actively saying being insane, being in pain is okay, maybe even valuable because it feels real.
And notice the repetition, right? Not just real heat, but real heat. That doubling down really emphasizes the intensity, the certainty of the feeling. It hammers home the point that whatever this state is, maybe it's chaos, maybe struggle, maybe anger, it is undeniably felt. It's proof of something happening inside, a confirmation of being alive, maybe.
So if we look back, the sun was bright, but he couldn't feel it. That suggests numbness, right? A kind of living death. This real heat is the polar opposite. It's internal, it burns, maybe it's destructive, but it's undeniable proof that he can still generate and experience something genuine, something intense.
Exactly. He's implicitly rejecting that beautiful but unfelt sunshine, maybe seeing it as a lie or just something he can't access anyway.
Yeah.
He's moved from needing external salvation, that light in the dark, to finding a strange kind of anchor in his own intense, maybe destructive internal reality.
Wow. So the narrative arc goes from, I need help, I'm lost, to something like, this painful intensity defines me, and that's better than feeling nothing at all.
Right.
It's like embracing the raw struggle itself as the only trustworthy reality left.
Yeah, if you pull back and look at the whole journey in these lines, the core theme seems to be this desperate search for something true, something authentic. It starts with grief that feels like hell, leading to isolation. The search for a map, for God's guidance, fails because he's too lost to use it. So what's left? Only the raw internal experience. And when faced with the choice between comfortable numbness, the sun, and painful intensity, the heat, he chooses the intensity. Because at least it's real. It's proof of life, maybe.
That makes the excerpt incredibly powerful, doesn't it? It shows the situation where finding meaning in your own suffering becomes the last resort, the final act of self-preservation almost. It really challenges the idea that healing has to be gentle or comfortable.
The struggle itself acquires value. And that's the power here, I think. It articulates this really complex state where you're looking for salvation, but doubt is everywhere. And this conflict between what should feel good, like sunshine or friends calling, and what actually feels real, even if it's insanity, or this burning heat becomes the main event, it really highlights that human need for honesty, maybe even if that honesty is painful, even if it burns.
And that conclusion, valuing the struggle, the real heat, it leaves us with something to think about, doesn't it? A kind of provocative thought for you, the listener. If this text suggests intense suffering can be valued because at least it's real heat, when does that feeling of authentic struggle become more valuable than the promise of easy relief, if that relief feels numb? When does the internal chaos actually confirm your reality more strongly than any external calm? Something to definitely mull over. Thanks for digging deep with us into these lyrics today. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.